Hi guys, welcome to Snakes and Adders. Welcome to another episode of our intermediate series. This is episode 32, the tiger rat snake, Spilotes pullatus. Welcome back to the series. And once again, please forgive the haphazard uploading of videos. The shop is just so busy currently, and the time needed to research and prepare for these guides is becoming increasingly difficult to accommodate. With the added pressures of the run up to Christmas, this has further been compounded. We're still committed to the channel and we'll try our very best to keep content coming as time allows. I'm incredibly excited to be covering this species today. A personal absolute favourite and always a sought after species. A species that has an unfortunate and always deserved reputation, that adapts well to captivity and can be reared without issue as long as you have room. This is a species that requires space. Today I'm covering the captive care of the tiger rat snake Spilotes pullatus. For a long time the genus Spilotes was a monotypic genus, meaning that the genus contained only one species. Taxonomic Review has split another genera of snake, which is hard to pronounce, called Susts with a silent P at the front, known as the puffing snakes or tropical liars, and placed in a species in the genus with the tiger rat snake, the Amazonian puffing snake, previously known as Sus sulphureus, and is now Spilotes sulphureus. The remaining species within the genus Sus became Phrynonax. Got lots of notes today. I wanted to make sure I did this species justice, and with it being so long since I did one, please forgive me if I'm a bit stop-start with it all. I will do my best. Oh, and by the way, I will be showing you a tiger rat snake, but I don't want to stress the snake any more than absolutely necessary, so I'll just get it out for a short period towards the end of the video before I cover the climate data which I put together for us. Spilotes pullatus was first described by Carl Linnaeus in 1758, so this is not a new snake by any means and has been subject to many taxonomic reviews since. As with so many other species, they were first placed in the genus Coluber, meaning simply snake. Pullatus in Latin means clothed in clothed in dark garments, owing to the varying levels of black pigmentation to the animal. Early on, there were some interesting classifications, with Laurenti in 1768 placing them in Cerastes, which is actually the horned vipers, so I think we'll move swiftly along from that one. The remainder of the classifications, bar a couple of exceptions, saw them remain within Spilotes, simply meaning spotted. Various attempts have been made to designate subspecies, but this seems to be in a permanent state of flux, with some subspecies being synonymized with others. To varying extents during my research, one may find listed Spilotes pullatus anomalepis from Brazil, named by Beaucourt in 1888. You may also find Spilotes pullatus maculatus mentioned, but these have proven hard to distinguish from an anomalepis. Come on, Chaz. Jesus. It's these Latin names, they're messing me up, man. You will also find Spilotes pullatus augustiformis from Honduras, named by Amaral in 1929, and Spilotes pullatus aribundus from southern Mexico, and Spilotes pullatus mexicanus from central and eastern Mexico, named by Laurenti in 1768. This species, in all its forms, covers a huge area where a multitude of different biomes are inhabited. Seasonality shifts across the range as it ranges from the northern hemisphere to the equator and down into the southern hemisphere. But we will cover this later when we look at the macro climate data that I collected. If we take Tampico, Mexico as the northern point and Espírito Santo near Sao Paulo, Brazil, this is a straight line distance of 4,600 miles or 7,400 kilometers. And I did print a map, which I'll just slide into view. So you can see the map of Central America, this is the US, Central America and then South America. And the green shaded area is the accepted distribution of all of Spilotes pullatus and its subspecies. That is quite some distance from Tampico in the north to Espirito Santo in the south. Slide that back. This is, therefore, a successful species. Tentatively, we could consider this to be an adaptable species. The truth of the matter, though, is the vast majority of tiger rat snakes kept in the United Kingdom originate from Guyana and the Guyana Shield. This is an equatorial zone where seasonality is minimal. Occasionally animals may be shipped from Costa Rica and Nicaragua in Central America. This is a highly variable species, with some specimens presenting as near solid black, with dirty yellow barring. Others are heavily banded, and some even have speckles or striping. For the most part, the posterior remains black, so the bottom, the tail end, the posterior remains black, with the majority of the yellow pigments presenting anteriorly, so from the head and neck down. The face is usually predominantly yellow, with scale margins being black. These margins thicken towards the back of the head and neck, leading to an increasingly black animal as we move down the body. Although not a hard and fast rule, animals from Guyana present with far more black than animals further north. The Mexican or Mexicanus subspecies animals are some of the most coveted, owing to the vastly increased presence of clean yellow spots, stripes and bars offset against that gorgeous gloss black. Certain specimens from Guyana can still be very pretty, but I've still to see one that comes close to the northern locality animals. So just to stop there, we'll just have a quick look. These are some animals. This one's relatively recent, probably maybe 18 months ago, 12 months ago. And this is a Guyana animal, and you can see the presence of the yellow on the nose. This is particularly reduced in the amount of yellow it's got. Some crossbars, and then we can see the saddle starting to form with the speckles, but as the tail curves around, we can see it turns to a jet black animal. Another Guyana animal there. Now these guys are interesting. These have got all sorts of shading and speckling in between the crossbars, and that one, good God, is absolutely amazing with the amount of yellow it carried and the dorsal stripe that it has. But even so, anteriorly we are heavy in pattern, and you can still see as we reach the posterior it alternates back to solid gloss black. They are absolutely phenomenal looking snakes, absolutely phenomenal, and just awe-inspiring, breathtaking species, and one of my absolute favourite colubrids. There is dimorphism in this species, but not in an immediately obvious way. Upon closer inspection of both sexes, it becomes apparent that males have a central keel to their body scales and females do not. This is not a rough keel, such as with species such as Nerodia, the North American water snakes, but this is an acute keel with the majority of the scale laying flat, with only the very centre of the scale coming to a very abrupt peak. All of my experience with tiger rat snakes, in fact pause, because you might not be able to see, I doubt that you will, but what I'll try and do is share these, but on this it's really obvious, mentioning dimorphism, that there's these central keel lines running down this, so this was almost certainly a male animal. All of my experience with tiger rat snakes is with imported animals. It is staggering that more are not produced in captivity, as this species will establish well, as long as they're given both time and space to settle in. Even when imported, this species will accept defrost, unscented mice and rats, which do seem to be a favourite. Other prey can include frogs and birds, and some specimens are opportunists, whereas some are much more mouse and rat centric. This is a species that is active and alert. Part of the reason why I'm not holding it now while I've got the manuscript in my hand, because it would just be an impossible task. It's going to take both hands and lots of concentration to keep up with him as he crawls through my hands. This is a species that is active and alert, and movement can play a part in triggering the feeding response. Care must be taken not to make the animal take flight or become spooked during feeding time, as they're liable just to come flying out of the vivarium. Some animals, particularly young animals raised temporarily in tubs, will drop feed, taking animals off a tray. With drop feed, taking animals off a tray on which the prey is left. This species has a fast metabolism and turns prey around quick, and as a result is a messy species, producing quantities of fecal material. How effective a cleanup crew would be with dealing with an adult's waste from this species is highly questionable. Regardless of the locality in which they occur, they are often found near watercourses and sources. This species will actively drink from coils of their own body and from leaves, so particularly with newly imported specimens, misting and spraying is a daily ritual. Given their range, modulation in habit is to be expected, but generally this species prefers tree cover and will move with ease and grace through trees, shrubs, lianas and thickets. Excuse me. This species in captivity presents as actively arboreal, and real thought to sky hides and raised caves should be considered for the psychological security of the animal. So a way of fixing some of the maybe the plastic caves that you see, the black plastic, extruded plastic, a way of raising them and putting them to the ceiling, or even side mounting them on walls so they could be slid off, filled with moss, slid back on, and these will be really used by the snakes and aid their psychological security within the vivarium. Adult animals, as already mentioned, require a lot of room, more room than you think. This species actively roams and investigates the enclosure, and a length equal to that of the snake is a minimum. Considering this species can reach 10 feet or 3 meters in length, this is going to be no small undertaking. The tanks should be tall, at least 4 or 5 feet tall, so 120 to 150 centimeters, and a minimum of 60 to 90 centimeters deep. This will be a display enclosure, and more than likely the centre point to a collection within a reptile room. Thinking about it, the lack of captive bred specimens may be down to the fact that people simply do not sacrifice an adequate amount of room for this species to settle. Whilst researching this video, it became apparent that keepers will maintain a pair or trio in cohabitation. This seems to centre around efforts to breed, and with the absence of seasonal shifts, particularly when we consider Guyana, they do not want to miss the breeding opportunities should the mood take the snakes. This is an egg-laying species, and depending on the locality of the snake, they modulate the shape of their eggs. Animals originating from Guyana have round eggs. Think corn snake eggs, but far larger. Costa Rican and Nicaraguan and Honduran eggs may begin to stretch slightly and elongate, and the eggs from Mexican locality animals stretch considerably and are reminiscent of mountain king snake eggs, so Lampropeltis pyromellana, so really elongate, sort of what's the word, almost like test tube ended, really long. These adaptations usually take place 2 species depending on the size of the female and the presence of prey, allowing for them to reach their size potential. Jungle-based animals therefore have a greater abundance of food than animals from the scrub and chaparral regions of Mexico. Texts I've also read indicate an issue with overfeeding or overfacing your animals. This is said to lead to fatality. I have no such experiences like this, but then again, I've never been a power feeder. Err to the side of caution. Stick to smaller prey items rather than monster-sized rats that will stretch your snake out. When dealing with imported specimens of any taxa, rehydration is key and of greater importance than food intake. As part of my medicine box, this includes a feline or canine urinary catheter. I will then make up a solution of a UK-based product called Reptiboost, which is salts, electrolytes and amino acids in a powder that will dilute when mixed with lukewarm water. Make up a solution of Reptiboost and usually administer 25 to 50 ml depending upon specimen size upon initial arrival to captivity. The catheter is lubricated and slowly and carefully passed down the throat. Take care not to insert into the trachea. This will help bolster salts, electrolytes and amino acids lost through stress through the journey and will promote good renal function and hopefully a quicker return to homeostasis and growth. I have not encountered ticks on this species, but I will always treat with frontline or fipronil upon arrival as well to deal with any mites that may occur when they arrive. The enclosure should have a basking area that is raised from the floor and offering a temperature of around 30 Celsius. Because of the size of the enclosure, 2 heaters may be needed in tandem to enlarge the basking area. Located nearby should be a Shade Dweller Max tube or similar from different manufacturers, and this allows the animals to photoregulate and thermoregulate, and the light and heat should be located at the same end of the enclosure. Given the size of the enclosure, a background heater such as a rear wall mounted tubular heater or radiant heat panel, such as the new ReptiRad released by Retixen Reptiles, should be used on a separate thermostat to hold the mid-vivarium area to 25 Celsius. The cool end should stay around 20 Celsius day or night. The basking area can be reduced to 26 Celsius at night. The basking area can be reduced to 26 Celsius at night. If halogens are used for daytime basking, then a separate thermostat will be needed for a ceramic heat emitter or a deep heat projector for nighttime heat. Some may choose to just use a ceramic heat emitter as the main heat source, cutting down on thermostat complications, as the photoregulatory activity is predominantly covered via the UVB source. So basically what that means is it's easy to make this overcomplicated, and it's certain research that you may do, whether it might be by the Reptile Lighting Group or others, will prescribe halogen light during the day, background heaters at night, but these obviously then require separate thermostatic control. This then increases exponentially the cost of the rig. If you had a non-light emitting heat source as the main heat source, and you could get that to 30 degrees, and then you had the UV light next to it, the photo and thermo are still covered with only a single thermostat being used. So it would somewhat simplify your tank, although might not necessarily offer the best solution for lighting. But if you've got a bottomless pot of money, go for it and use as many stats as you need. If extra lighting is needed on top of the ceramic and the single stat solution, you could maybe use the energy saving type spots, and you can buy them in daylight form, which offer a light temperature of 6,500 Kelvin, which is effectively daylight. The floor covering should be a mix of orchid, core and sphagnum moss to bolster humidity. A large water container should be provided and should be used for bathing, and may be used for bathing. This should definitely be obscured by foliage, real or artificial, to encourage its use. If it is out in the open without cover, it will seldom be used. Drinking may only be seen when using water droplets from the spraying and misting. Initially, fortnightly bolstering with electrolytes to help keep the animal hydrated whilst it adjusts to captive life will be helpful. Feeding for the most part can be done on a weekly basis. Babies may require small meals every 5 days or so, based upon production of fecal material. Care must be taken to avoid obesity. These are slender, marginally laterally compressed snakes where a dorsal peak should be present. So they should never be round in cross section. So, you know, they are, rather than being like this, they're definitely more this sort of shape in cross section, and there should be a dorsal crest, so you should be able to see a ridge. If your snake is like this, it is overfed and it is obese. So now we'll look at climate data, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Lado out. We'll have a quick appraisal of him, have a look at him, and then we'll go through the climate data and see if that can tell us anything. Bear with me one moment. Come on, darling. Have you come? Good lad. Good lad. Thank you. All right. All right. Good lad. Right. Let's have a quick look. Here he is. Oh, now then. Can we see your face? Are you going to let me? That's it. Good lad. Just look at that. What an absolutely phenomenal species this is. They have an unjust reputation for being overly aggressive, when in actual fact, if you let them move and remain loose, biting and striking are seldom seen. What you may find is that they've got like a gular sac, which is beginning to inflate now. And if they feel threatened, they'll inflate their neck and make themselves far larger to try and appear more intimidating. They may gape and they may sort of mock strike as well. Just see if I can get him to just settle 2 minutes. Let's have a look. The thing is, they're so agile, even as a decent sized snake, and this one is probably approaching 6.5 feet in length. He is still really, really agile. And don't let their size fool you. They remain this quick right up until being sort of 9 and 10 feet long. Can we see your face? There you go. Look at you. Oh my God. Just absolutely amazing. Hopefully we can pick up maybe some of the keeling on his body scales. I don't know whether the camera will pick it up, but it's worth looking at. Just look at him. Oh. Those eyes are picking up everything. These snakes see everything. They are super alert, and they will sit in their sky hides with their head hung out, and they're checking everything out. Everything. His belly is a lovely checkerboard of yellow and black, predominantly yellow anteriorly, and then becomes solid black posteriorly. Again, over on the dorsal patination, let's see if we can hold him up here. We can see how much yellow there is to the front of the body, and then this sort of fades out, becomes muckier and darker as we move towards the posterior. You're getting fed up now. I'm going to pop him back. I don't want to keep him out too long. Oh, in you go. Put the plant back. So you've got your cover. Good lad. Thank you very much. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll just slide this into the centre shot. I'm hoping that these darker ones show up the lines a bit brighter and make it easier for us to see what's going on. I'm going to hide those pictures because we want the map. So to review, this is the distribution of Spilotes pullatus and all its subspecies. I picked 8 localities north of the dotted line and 8 localities south. In truth, complete honesty, Guyana got chopped off, and realistically I should have probably put it into the bottom group, so that did skew things slightly. So the 8 northern localities are Tampico, Mexico, Mexico City, Mexico, Villahermosa, Mexico, San Pedro Sula, Honduras, Puerto Cabezas, Nicaragua, Panama City, Panama, Caracas, Venezuela, and Georgetown, Guyana. The southern group is Paramaribo, Suriname, Cayenne in French Guiana, Boa Vista, Brazil, Manaus, Brazil, Porto Velho, Brazil, Recife, Brazil, Brasilia, Brazil, and Espírito Santo, Brazil. So what I decided to do was look at the daytime high, the nighttime low, and rainfall, and then translate them into line graphs to see if there was any patterns. So we have the daytime high northern range, nighttime low northern range, seasonal rainfall northern range. So if we look at that first, so this would be for Mexicanus and the Central American animals that we discussed that might be from Costa Rica or Nicaragua. And what I've managed to do is put a dotted red line, which is our average values. And there isn't a huge heap to see here, but we're ranging from 27 in January, we are raising up to 31 degrees Celsius, 30, 31, and then we're moving back down to 27. So the cool period would be from November through to February, although this is marginal at best. The other lines we've got is the nighttime low for the northern range, and these guys are from Mexico City, and this is Tampico, Mexico. So the Mexicanus animals would be considerably cooler at night, and this may be down to exposure, reduction in tree cover, these sorts of things. So you're thinking about biome and habitat where the animal may be, and their nighttime values in December are dropping to nearly 5 degrees Celsius, which is just crackers. I mean, you wouldn't think it was that cool, but it is. The averages for the group, probably dragged down by the inclusion of these, brings us to about 16 or 17 degrees at night, January, February, and November, December, and then this increases to around 22 Celsius. The remainder of the group remains slightly warmer at between 22 and 24 degrees Celsius. So we've got a modulation from 31 at its peak in July in summer, and that would drop to around 22 degrees at night. Where we've got maybe a slightly more defined pattern forming is for rainfall, where our dry season runs from January through to April, where we are dropping down into, in certain areas, complete drought, in other areas as little as 10 or 12 mil per month. And then this runs up to our summer wet season, June, July, August, September, where we're sitting at just underneath 100 mil per month of rainfall. So whilst there may not be temperature modulation, a deep season, there is a defined wet and dry season, which may also help with the triggers, and it may be worth looking at. So that's the northern range. The southern range, which is this area here, over a huge area, and it stands to reason is the more that we move south, these are going to show more aberrant, lower nighttime values. It's to be expected. So the southern range is an average of 30 degrees, dip into maybe 28, and then late summer, August, September, we're maybe hitting 32, 33, certain areas up nearly 34 or 35. At night, we have got pretty much linear. There is only a set dip between June and August, and that is literally a change of maybe 2 or 3 Celsius at most. Bear in mind, and just a reminder, this is macro data, it's not microclimate data. This is what's been collected on a airstrip. And what it's to do is maybe just give us an overview of what's going on. It is not microclimate data. I'm not claiming it's microclimate data, and I'm not trying to make it do something that it doesn't do. I'm simply showing you patterns that may help inform when you would make changes, if you made changes, to try and instigate breeding activity. Nighttime low is pretty much linear. We have, once again, on the rainfall, while following our average line, got a defined wet and dry season, but it is the polar opposite of the northern range. So this is your north-south, northern hemisphere, south-southern hemisphere changeover where things switch. So we have got a wet season that runs from January through to May, and we are above 100 mil as our average rainfall, probably about 110, 115. Certain areas, so French Guiana, Cayenne, peaks at 300 mil in a single month, which is just amazing. And then our our dry season runs from July through to October. Certain areas, again, almost reaching total drought, which is interesting when you think that these are nearly predominantly all in Brazil. You think the Amazon, you think rainforest, you think it's piss wet through and all it does is rain. In actual fact, some of these collection points, Recife, that is almost zero rainfall. And then also, where are we? Boa Vista, that's another one that has a pronounced drought spell as well. So there is definitely modulation in rainfall. And even though these are jungle animals, rainfall may play a key role in what's going on. What I did then was, once I'd taken these average lines, is I put the average lines into these graphs. And this was north versus south daytime high, north versus south nighttime low, and seasonal rainfall north versus south. The red line is your southern group, which runs hotter, and also you can see how the rainfall are at opposite poles, so they happen completely independent of one another. So this probably clears things up slightly. We've got 31 in the southern group, which dips slightly May through to August down to 30 degrees, but then it raises back up to 33, 34 degrees, and then starts to cool down again. The nighttime lows become more pronounced between October and January. So we get this, and that's the northern group, where they have got far cooler temperatures from November through to January, and then they peak where the southern group dips. So it's all very interesting. Your nighttime lows, you can see that the northern group, as we would expect, northern hemisphere, most of us are watching from, that our nighttime lows are lowest in the winter period from October through to February, whereas in the southern group, which is the polar opposite, the cool period happens midsummer, May through till July. So at which point, depending on the locality of your animal, may inform a way of modulating the daytime and nighttime temperatures. And then you've got seasonal rainfall. So again, polar opposites. The peak season for rainfall in the southern range is for the first half of the year, and the peak rainfall for the northern range is in the second half of the year. So I hope that's been of use. I thoroughly enjoy doing the videos, but as I said, it's just a time constraint thing, and it's just so difficult at the minute. The shop has really kicked on and found another gear, and I've got these two new wonderful members of staff, Pixie and Becky, who have been doing great guns for me, absolutely revolutionised the way the shop runs, and we've never been as busy, which is a great problem to have. The issue is, I know that people still want the content and want to see the videos, but it's just simply finding time. I do want to keep making them. We've got some wicked species in at the minute, including the yellow-tailed crebos, which I do want to cover, so that'll hopefully be the next one. Keep posted, keep watching the videos. Thanks for the support. We'll see you all